Happy New Year! Welcome back to the Hello REDLO podcast. I'm your host, Terry Mullen. Sit back, put on some headphones, and listen in. Today's episode is about my grandfather and why I believe we all need someone to believe in us. We all need someone to believe in us, don't we? Unfortunately, it isn't always our parents. For me, it was my grandparents, and I hope you have someone who believes in you. I found this really great quote by Rita Pearson. It says, "Every child deserves a champion, an adult who will never give up on them, who understands the power of connection and insists they become the best they possibly can be." I'm going to let that just sit for a moment. It's powerful, isn't it? I think about myself and these older years and later in my life. I look back. We all take a part of us, our part of our childhood with us, and we carry it forward like a suitcase. And at different seasons in our life, we pause and we open that suitcase up. We rummage through it and we find those treasures, those things that matter to us, the people, the words they said, the values, the moments, the experiences, and we look at them. They have an impact on us. And then we remove the things that no longer serve us. And then we pack up that suitcase and we carry on to the next season of our life. Yes, my grandparents instilled a lot of values and special moments in my life. And they were my champions. So I'm going to tell you a story first about my grandfather. As I've shared, he had a family restaurant that he had for over 50 years in a small town in Washington State. That restaurant was called Barney's. It was named after my wonderful grandfather, Barney Miller, a man whose legacy and name needed no middle name. His heritage, German. One of 10 brothers and sisters. He was a stubborn, hardworking, ornery, tough-as-nails entrepreneur of a man. Long before entrepreneur was even a word. Well, is that actually even possible? I don't know, it seems that way. But he was loving, giving, and a tender-hearted teddy bear type who minced absolutely no words. He told you exactly what he thought. Well, you had to know him to really see that teddy bear side of him, because he had a very tough exterior, but a very soft and tender interior, a very soft and tender heart. He lived to be 93 years old, and up until that point he was very fit and he drove, until the day he slipped on ice. At age 91, he got a clot in his brain, and unfortunately, he was never the same. He wore a flannel shirt daily, Pendleton to be exact, which was his trademark, along with a pressed pair of khaki or dark work pants. He drank beer, sprinkled with salt on top from a small juice glass, and he nipped a bit of scotch every day that he tucked away somewhere among the tools in his old, dark, pungent shed that was covered with an old rusty tin roof. He ate red meat, often freshly ground and raw. It was his own version of tartare. He also ate a lot of butter, drank buttermilk, and then he ate numerous vegetables from his wonderful football-sized garden that he grew every summer. Oh, it was delicious, and he loved that garden. His pride and joys, most notably, were his tractor, his red truck, his dog Sheba. He had 11 consecutive border collies, by the way, all named Sheba. He loved his family and his restaurant. Barney's work ethic was probably much like that from his generation, unmatched. Raised in poverty during the Great Depression with only an 8th grade education, he went on to be incredibly self-sufficient and a risk-taking, successful entrepreneur. Yes, he had that restaurant for over 50 years, among other businesses on the property. And he was a hero in my eyes. Even though he was tough, I knew he loved me. And I also knew he would always tell me the truth. He had incredible integrity. I had so much respect for my grandfather. His strength of character was unmatched. He held a man to his word, and he believed in doing business the old-fashioned way, with an honest handshake. Honesty was highly valued, and he rated it as his highest moral value. If he asked you a question, you better stand there, look him straight in the eye, and respond with the truth. He believed in the commitment of work. and to work very hard. If you were going to do something, you better do it with 100%. As he used to say, nothing in this life will be handed to you. No one owes you anything. You are going to have to work hard for anything you want. He was a complicated man in many ways, but one who lived simply and fully. He was a very strong man, but he had one weakness. He had an incredible fear of flying. I think he flew twice in his lifetime, one of those being for his daughter's wedding. He loved his country, Ronald Reagan, and the beauty of Washington State. It didn't take much to make him happy. Often, a ride on his tractor up to the barn and a brief visit from those he loved before or after a long, hard day's work was all he wanted. However, if you left too early from that visit, he would always look at you and say, "Don't let that door hit you in the ass on the way out." Sorry for the swear word, but that's how he said it. You knew then he was upset with you, and for as long as I can remember, Barney's workday began at 3 or 4 a.m. and it ended sometime around 6 p.m. And I always knew if I needed to chat, I could wake up early on any morning, wander down to the basement of the restaurant, and there he would be, quietly cutting meat by the woodblock next to the walk-in cooler with a stained white apron wrapped around his waist. And for some reason, if he wasn't there, he was certain to be found in his office that was tucked back in the back corner among the dry goods of the restaurant that had been stocked in that basement. Oh, and that basement, too, it was a sacred place, a musty sanctuary away from all of the hustle and bustle from the restaurant above. And it was a place where I, too, could be vulnerable and honest with my grandfather and watch him work. I probably drove him absolutely crazy with all of the questions I had. You see, I was a very curious child. I wanted to know everything about just about everything, especially how the restaurant worked, how he learned to do all this with just an 8th grade education. It was hard for me to fathom and wrap my mind around in that young age. But there we would be together, sometimes in silence. So I would just plop myself down on a 100-pound bag of flour and sugar and visit. I could dream. I could dream about my life in those moments. And it was then everything seemed possible. Barney was open then, available. He was willing to talk about life, his life, current or past, and his childhood. And he would listen intently to me, all my chatter, my dreams, all that I wanted to do. And he would comment as needed. He was often a man of few words, but what he said was always forthright and honest, and I better be listening. It was in those moments that he would remind me how intelligent, beautiful, and capable I was, even though inside I often greatly doubted myself. But Barney, he never doubted me. He would always tell me that I could do anything I wanted because God gave me a good mind and a big heart. He also told me I could go to any college I wanted, and they would be lucky to have me. He knew it was my dream back then to be a doctor, and he was always so proud of me, my grades. I got straight A's back then. As I look back, it wasn't about the grades, even though he was proud of me. It was that he valued education because he only went to the 8th grade. And he was so proud of what I was doing. It still amazes me that he only had an 8th grade education and all the businesses he ran. I learned a lot sitting on those bags of flour and sugar, just watching him work. Often, it wasn't even what he said. It was the way he worked. It was his work ethic. It was how precisely and methodically he cut that meat, flavoring it with his secret sauce and placing it neatly on the butcher paper for the evening chef, who at that time was my father. Then he would grind his meat precisely, running it repeatedly through the grinder until it was just right. He would make it cubed, and then he would make hamburger, sampling it occasionally with a little bit of salt and pepper and taking a sip of beer. It was his delicacy, and a moment that he enjoyed quietly in that basement doing what he loved. And I look back on those moments, and they were a gift to me. They were my treasures that I carry forward with me in my heart, in my mind, and I've used so many of the values that he taught me in my own life. because it was in those moments I knew I was loved. I knew I was heard, I was seen, and I belonged. And so it is. I hope it is with your life that you have had someone or have someone in your life that believes in you. Until next time, may God bless you. And please know that you are seen, you are heard, you are loved, and you belong. This is REDLO.